hear some jets going overhead, and it'll start recording here in just a moment. And I just want to say good morning, everybody. Welcome to our life skills presentation that we host on a monthly basis, the third Tuesday of every month. And we're just so grateful to have special guests here today with us from Davis, Miles, McGuire, Gardner Law Firm here located in Tempe, Arizona. And Cricket, I'm going to let you get started. And as we have more guests join, we will admit them. Go ahead, Cricket. The floor is yours.
Awesome, thank you. And I live in Luke Air Force Base territory, so if you're hearing jets, it's me, and they go over quite often, so I do apologize, but I guess, it's a positive thing at the same time. So, but thank you. We would love to, share with all of you that today we're taking a little different approach with our life skills, and we're super excited about it. One of the things that Kevin and myself, being a mom of autism and raising a son who now just turned 18, one of the concerns that we had was just making sure that we did the right thing as a parent to set him up for success. And as we age out and, we're no longer here, that Landon has as typical of a life as possible. And so with that, there's a lot of legal stuff that goes along with this that people are just unaware of or maybe even afraid to approach. I know I was at some points. My husband being a law enforcement agent, he even had benefits at work that we could have taken advantage of, and we just didn't know it, and nor did we really want to approach that subject. So we never took advantage of it. I mean, he's been in law enforcement 12 years, and I think just 3 years ago is when we actually set it all up. So it was like Russian roulette, But that said, I met Bernadette about 3 years ago. Actually, I think our anniversary is coming up 3 years ago. And I met her at a networking event where she was working as a Legal Shield associate. And, right away, she introduced me to her daughter, and I already knew that her daughter was on the autism spectrum, but I never tell people that I know that. I just kind of acknowledge it when she mentioned it. And so I said, yes, I already knew that. And she said, how'd you know? And I said, well, my son has autism as well. And I said, there's a lot of traits that somebody that lives with it every day recognizes. And so that said, Bernadette said, well, I would like to start a support group. And I said, okay, when you're ready, let me know. I'm the founder of Sounds of Autism. But at that time, she would never know that because I worked for Dave & Buster's. I was an event salesperson. And so, when I was furloughed a while back, it's been over a year now, Bernadette and I had the time that we've probably wanted for a really long time. And I was able to really bridge all the gaps that were necessary to take people on the journey from the prenatal stage all the way till the end of life. And so we have 4 phases of our programs. And currently we've been walking into the 12 West Valley cities that exist, and we've been sharing our program with all the municipalities and the resource centers and the police departments to let them know who we are and what we're doing. And I think they believe that that's going to be the end of it, that they're just never going to see us again, but they have no idea. Like, that's just the beginning introduction stage. We have groups of people going in and finding and seeking out these families and bringing them to the resources and all of the things that we offer, including yourselves, to these families, because we're finding that many of them struggle to even see the signs or acknowledge the signs. And so those are things that we want to support families with. So there's a huge program, and it goes all the way till the end of life. And we have a lot of people, I think over 600 people that we know of that can really support us, maybe even more. That said, today we invited Bernadette to share a little bit about her story and what she does with Legal Shield. And then she's going to introduce the associates that she works with that can help support setting up special needs trust and all the different legal things that are necessary to give that support to your family and make sure that your child has his rights and those things are all being acknowledged with this process. So that said, and without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Bernadette Smith, Director of Community and Corporate Outreach of Sounds of Autism and Legal Shield Associate. Thank you.
Cricket, thank you so much. And again, I just want to say thank you to Davis Smiles McGuire Gardner for joining us. I have Mr. Ron Jones, Sarah Clifford, and Mr. Bob Sewell. And I'm just very fortunate as well to have my business partner, Vera Elliott, here. And we're supposed to be having another fellow associate join us. I hope she can make it. But I am a Legal Shield associate. But more importantly than that, I'm a mom of autism. And I've been a member of Legal Shield for over 16 years. I love helping families with sounds of autism. And now we get to help families with Legal Shield, but only because we work with one of the finest law firms across the nation. And they're right here in our backyard, Davis Smiles. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes before they present today to share what Davis Smiles and Legal Shield means for me and my family. Because there are so many times, I mean, if you think about it, how many times have you as a family or any families that you might serve, because we have service providers here as well, wanted to just pick up the phone and call an attorney and get advice on unlimited personal issues, or even having a document reviewed free of charge because you have the membership plan? What about your child not getting the services that they need and they're being denied? I have been able to call Davis Smiles numerous times and get help with advice and know my rights before I walk into an IEP meeting. Yes, we get pamphlets from the schools that tell us what our rights are, but I personally would much rather pick up a phone and call Davis Smiles and talk to an attorney to learn what my rights are. And they also give us 24/7 emergency access, as well as a 25% discount on guardianships and conservatorships, which they're going to talk about today. But all of this we get for less than $1 a day. And we also get to, like I said, pick up the phone and call them. But I'm grateful to be able to get these services. And additionally to that, one of the most important things for me with this membership is that Isabella is covered for life because she has a mental and or physical disability. Legal Shield has been helping families for over 48 years, and that's nearly half a century. And yet so many families don't know that this service exists right in their backyard. And that's what I do as community and corporate outreach. I go out to different meetings and find all the resources. And so today we want to be able to have Davis Smiles share with you how they support our families. They are not only one of the finest law firms, but just in getting to meet them, they really do have a sincere desire to serve families of special needs. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you once again to Miss Sarah Clifford and Mr. Bob Sewell, both Esquires. And we do have Mr. Ronald Jones joining us today, but he's not going to be presenting. So before we get started, I would like to ask everyone to turn off their videos and their microphones so that we have a smoother stream. And I am going to turn it over to you two. Let me know if you need help with anything, and I'll let you know when we can see your present come up.
Great. Thank you, Bernadette, for having us. I really appreciate that, and we're really excited to share with you guys today and to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart and near and dear to Bob's heart as well.
Right.
Are you guys able to see my screen, my presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So as Bernadette said, I'm Sarah Clifford. This is my colleague, Bob Sewell. We're both attorneys at Davis Smiles McGuire Gardner. Bob and I both practice in trust and estates administration. I'm more on the administration and planning side. Bob is more on the litigation side. And one of the things that comes up in both planning, administration, and litigation are issues with special needs people and special needs issues.
Such important issues to look at, to take seriously, to be circumspect about. We really have to be serious about doing good planning for people with special needs.
Yeah, and oftentimes it is a really stressful area for families with special needs. So I wanted to share a little bit about my background, and I know Bob wanted to share a little bit about his, but you'll see I stuck a picture up of my youngest brother, Nathan. Nathan has autism and has special needs. He's 19, and so last year when he was turning 18, my mom and I watched my mom go through the stress and the heartache of, okay, what happens when he turns 18? Doctors aren't going to want to talk to me. 18 is a big birthday for anyone with special needs. And so having this brother with special needs, I feel like this area is very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, and it is for me as well. My mom is not your typical person with special needs. When you think about it, she has dementia. She has a condition that has affected her mentally and physically. And I wanted to share this picture with you because this was the last trip we were able to take together. She wanted to go see her son, and I said, I'll take you, Mom. And you can see she's got a terrible haircut there. And you can also see we look a lot alike, but she's got this terrible haircut. And it's because I couldn't convince her that she should go to a beauty salon and that she shouldn't cut her own hair. And she's like, no, I'm going to cut my own hair. And this is emblematic, though, of her condition, her disease. And so I love this picture because it was the last time she could travel. But it reminds me that she was really struggling and she was heading down a different direction at that point in her life.
So special needs encompasses a broad area of people. This presentation isn't just for people who are, parents of special needs kids, but it encompasses a lot of people. So people who were in an accident and can no longer function the way that they were before the accident. People who were born with special needs, like my little brother Nathan, or aging adults who have special needs issues related to aging. Special needs is a very broad area and it encompasses a lot of different types of individuals. And
when you plan for someone with special needs, you got to look at the goals. And for us, what we want to encourage you to think about is the goal of independence and the goal of protection. We want our people who have special needs to maintain as much independence as possible, that they have the most productive life possible. We don't want to take away that from them. But on the other hand, we need to protect people with special needs. We need to make sure that they are safe. We need to make sure that their government benefits are intact. We need to make sure that they have all their needs, frankly, so they can maintain their independence.
Yeah, it reminds me of the independence issue. So my little brother is really into riding horses. He got into therapy riding and now he goes and rides every day, and that was a picture of his horse Pinball. He wants to be independent and he wants to take care of that horse. And Bob's mom wants to be independent and wants to, cut her own hair and keep that independence. But just like every special needs person is unique. I don't believe in a rote hammer, this is, the path for everybody approach. Anybody who's been around special needs individuals knows that every single one of them is unique and has unique needs and unique desires and unique circumstances. So I don't believe there's one size fits all approach with special needs planning. There are some people who say this is, this is what's right for everybody. That is not me, and frankly, that's not Bob either. There's no one size fits all.
Right.
So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at some tools in the toolbox. And that's just that. There are tools that are available to you. You can pick up the hammer and the screwdriver, or maybe you just need the hammer. Maybe you need the nails and the saw. But I just wanted to walk you through some tools that are available to you.
Okay, so let's look at some of the tools. One tool is something called a guardian. Another tool is something called a conservator, or you can look at a substitute for one of those things above: durable powers of attorney, healthcare powers of attorney, special needs trusts. Those are some of the things we're going to be looking at. Let's take those one at a time. Okay, first of all, what's a guardianship? A guardianship is when the court appoints someone over you or the special needs person to manage their health care decisions. They're over their body. They think of them as like a parent to the person in every single respect. The caretaker, generally speaking, is the guardian. Generally speaking, the person who is cared for, we typically refer to that person as the ward during the court proceeding. Okay, let's talk about what a conservatorship. So if the guardianship is over the body, the conservatorship's over the money. They manage the business and financial decisions for the incapacitated person. They are the dollars and cents person, the money manager. When you think of the money manager, you think of the conservator. And generally in guardian conservator law, when we think of the person who is cared for, we call them the protected person. So guardianship, body, conservatorship, the money. Now let's ask ourselves whether we need a guardianship or a conservatorship or both. And we're going to talk about why we want to, as we go along today, why we want to avoid conservatorships, some of the ways we want to plan around that. But let's just get some of the basics first. So does the person have over $10,000 in assets? It happens. Just because they have special needs doesn't mean they're broke. They could have money. People give people money. They came with money in advance of their special needs. So if the person has over $10,000 in assets, they need a conservatorship if they can't manage their own business affairs. So now, are they over the age of 18? If they're over the age of 18 and lack capacity, they're going to need a conservatorship. So what does that mean to lack capacity? Let's talk about that just generally. It's more complicated than what I'm going to say, but let's talk about it a little bit. Are they capable of understanding business matters? If they're capable of understanding business matters, do they know what it means to enter into a contract? Can they manage their own money? Can they make reasonable decisions regarding money? If they can, then they're probably not going to need a conservatorship. But if they can't, if they're falling down, if they're potentially a victim of abuse, that could be a victim of unsavory people, those types of capacity issues, they may need a conservatorship if they're going to have money, and in fact they will likely need it. Now, if they can't make a reasonable decision regarding their person, if they can't make a decision, a good healthcare decision for themselves, how to eat, how to go to the grocery store, things like this. Someone's in the lobby. If you want to admit them, and but if they can't, then they're going to need a guardianship. So guardianship helps you make these good decisions for the person. If they're unable to do that, and the conservatorship over the money. Okay, so what's the process? The process is to get you appointed a guardian and conservator. It's a bit of a pain in the butt. It's not impossible to accomplish. You can find self-service websites out of the Maricopa County. Other counties have them too, but it's a bit of a pain in the butt. First, you have to present a petition and several other documents that go with it to the court. Once they are appointed to the court, you have to pay the court investigator, and you have to pay to get a court investigation, and you have to get an attorney appointed. You also need to get a physician's report. The physician needs to opine that the person really lacks capacity. So once you have this investigator that's come out and looked at the house and made sure that you're an appropriate person, that you're not, your house is in the wreck, you're keeping your child safe, these types of things, or the protected person safe. And once you have that physician report, and once the attorney's been appointed, then you have a hearing. And the court will hear evidence about the person's condition and whether or not you're an appropriate guardian or conservator. They're going to look at whether or not you've committed crimes, whether or not you're abusive in any way, things like this. Now, having a conservatorship and a guardianship may not be right for everybody. More people coming in. So we don't want to necessarily spend time being in front of a court if we don't have to. Courts are a pain. They get involved in your life. There's lots of procedures. And when you have all these procedures, that means you're spending money on lawyers. And if you could avoid the courts, if you could avoid the drudgery of the court system, the more money you're going to have for your kid and, frankly, for yourself. So if the protected person can sign a contract and would maintain, listen, and we're going to look at their capacity to do that and avoid the guardianship. Let me talk more about that in a bit. Okay, let's look at this case, In re State Long. In re Marie Long. Okay, this one is a famous case in Arizona back in 2005 that sent the probate world for reeling, and it ended up causing a lot of procedures. Let me tell you what went wrong. She had $1.3 million in 2005, but by 2008, she had $435,000, give or take. And what went wrong here was what went wrong in this situation was they spent money on lawyers. They argued about who should be the guardian, who should be the conservator, whether or not they're doing a good job. And Marie didn't plan well. She didn't really think about this well, or really consider it honestly, because if she would have appointed some third party and not her kids, because it ended up depleting nearly everything for her by the time she passed. It was incredibly problematic.
Yeah, and to put that into perspective, so she has an attorney who's appointed to represent her interests. Then her kids have an attorney who's the one that's trying to get appointed as conservator. This one was contested, so another kid was trying to get appointed as conservator, and they had their own attorney. When all those attorneys sit down and meet, the fees add up really, really fast, because each attorney is, billing at hundreds of dollars an hour. Back in 2005 money, whenever all the attorneys met, it was over $700 an hour in attorney time. In 2021 money, that would be much more expensive. So it is very easy in a guardianship and conservatorship to end up accidentally eating up all the assets for the protected person, and that's not what we want. That money is her money, and it should be used for her care, not eaten up in attorney's fees. I don't think anybody is sitting there saying, I want to do with mom's money, pay attorneys. So that's the overview of guardianship and conservatorship. The next ones that we're going to look at are the durable power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney.
Okay. So like I said, if the person could sign, if they have enough capacity to understand the act of a durable power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney, we should have that person sign those things in advance of their incapacity. The reason? It's cheaper. You avoid the court, no public proceedings. There can be some drawbacks to these powers of attorney. Sometimes banks don't pay attention to them. They can be revoked. So if the person's not going to mind them, you really need to be considerate of whether or not that's an appropriate device for them.
Yeah. And one of the big things when I'm trying to discuss with a client whether or not a guardianship and conservatorship is right for them, or whether or not powers of attorney would be right, it's really one of the big issues is, can this person still, are they going to get taken advantage of? With powers of attorney, the special needs person can still enter into contracts, so they can still sign contracts and be bound by those contracts. If there's somebody who is going to be very, very susceptible to being taken advantage of, then that's something to consider and weigh the pros and cons of.
You're going to want to meet with an attorney. You can do these do-it-yourself forms, but you got to know which form to choose. Not all forms are created equal. You got to know whether or not that form is a good form for you. I do recommend when you are planning for someone with special needs, you meet with an attorney.
Yeah, this is one of those areas, this and special needs trusts, you get what you pay for, ultimately. So yes, you can absolutely go on, LegalZoom and download a power of attorney and use that. My biggest piece of advice there is make sure you use the Arizona form, not the California form, because California is weird. And states all are going to have their own laws. But when you're dealing with a special needs person, this is one of those areas where you get what you pay for. Bob, every day, all day, is cleaning up messes left behind by people who are doing DIY stuff and trying to do their own. That's Bob's area.
I'm with the guy you call when there's a problem and you haven't really planned. And so I like to do these presentations because I see people who could have avoided me, could have avoided a lot of heartache. There always will be plenty of people who don't plan, so don't you worry about me. But yeah, I'm the guy you call for that.
Okay, so the last tool in our toolbox, we've talked about guardianship and conservatorship. The court comes in and will give you power over that person to sign their name for them. We've talked about powers of attorney, where that person will appoint you as their agent to act for them. The last tool in our toolbox is special needs trusts. So my first thought is, what is a trust? And a lot of times I think that there is this misconception that trusts are for people who are really rich. We always hear trust babies, and trust babies are going out and spending their trust money, and you think like, you need to be very, very wealthy to be able to have a trust. Not so. There are multiple different types of trusts. The type of trust we're going to look at right now is specifically special needs trusts and special needs planning. So one of my mom's biggest concerns is when I pass away, I want to make sure that Nathan is taken care of. And we've had this conversation so many times because that weighs on her a lot. Right now, she is there taking care of him and making sure his needs are met. But, he's the youngest. There is a possibility that he outlives my parents, that he outlives me, he outlives all my siblings. So it is real fear for her. This is the tool that I would recommend to parents and guardians of special needs people who are worried about the future and what happens when they pass away. So what are the benefits of special needs trusts? Unlike a guardianship and conservatorship, so yes, you can leave money to a special needs person and just cut them a check. Great. They might be subject to a guardianship and conservatorship where you're going to court because they don't have capacity to manage that. If they are fiscally irresponsible, they might go and get taken advantage of and swindled out of that money. Scammers really like special needs people. But the benefits of special needs trust is that you can appoint a third person who is not subject to court overview to manage and watch that money.
And Sarah, if you just let your money go to the person with special needs, that's a one-way ticket to a conservatorship. And a one-way ticket because that person now has money, So that's not really a good plan. And once you have the government in your life, once you have that conservatorship in your life, then you're dealing with me, and it's a lot less pleasant. She's a really nice person. She'll help you avoid that.
Bob is, don't you see this face? Another benefit of special needs trusts is that you can put as much in them or as little in them as you want. So you can have a special needs trust that has $100 billion in it if you have that type of money that you want to leave for the special needs person. You can have a special needs trust that has, a couple $100,000 in it. Ultimately, it depends on what you want to leave that person, but there's no cap on what you can leave them. Another benefit, and one of the things that we really want to make sure with special needs planning, is that the special needs person still qualifies for government benefits. So the last thing we want to do is to do some sort of planning that torpedoes their government benefits. And now, they have this chunk of change, but now they can't get, those benefits from the government. So we set them up in a way that allows them to still qualify for Social Security, Medicaid, subsidized housing, and other government programs. These special needs trusts can provide care above and beyond the care that the government provides, because I think we all know that oftentimes the government is providing the minimum amount. So there is money there, but it's not there. It's not a lot of money, and so we can provide a little bit of extra money for them. Another benefit of special needs trusts is if they are set up properly, they can be great asset protection for the special needs person. What that means is that that's not money. So if my parents created a trust for my special needs trust for my brother, that money is not my brother's. That means that if my brother goes and enters into a contract, okay, and signs his name and says, I am going to buy a Ferrari, okay, and then all of a sudden he's on the hook for this $1 million car. Creditors cannot come after the money in the trust and collect on that, because that's not my brother's money. That's the trust money, and it is subject to the limitations of the trust. And so that is one huge benefit of special needs trusts, is that yes, with guardianships and conservatorship, or with powers of attorney, so healthcare power of attorney and durable power of attorney, you have the fear and you run the risk of that person being able to contract. But with special needs trust, you can protect the money in the trust from creditors if they do enter into a contract. So how do we create a special needs trust? Well, again, this is an area where you get what you paid for. You can always go on the internet and download forms from LegalZoom, but you might be ending up in Bob's office.
Do it. I need more work.
Bob needs.
That's a joke, guys. It's a total joke.
So, you want to find somebody who is experienced in creating special needs trusts. You need to have a plan to fund the special needs trust. There are a couple different ways that, we can set up special needs trusts. One is set up and holds assets while the person who created the trust is alive. It's called an irrevocable trust. So what I would do is I could set up a trust for my brother. I could dump, $100,000 into that trust, and then grandparents and parents and brothers and sisters could all add money into that trust for his care. That's one type of trust. The second type of trust says, when I pass away, this is, what I want my money to be used for. This would be the sort of trust that my mom would probably create for my little brother. Right now, she's taking care of him. He lives with her. She makes sure that he eats his gluten-free diet. He has a lot of dietary restrictions, has a horse, so they're taking care of him right now. But when she passes away, she wants to make sure that money still continues to go for his care. What that is called is a revocable trust. It's her alter ego right now, because right now she's alive, she's taking care of him, she can amend it, but once she passes away, that's when all that comes into play. You need to have the trust in place before the child inherits. So people always come into Bob's office, and I know because I've heard them, and they say, my mom wanted me to have this. My mom promised me this. This is what they wanted. To which I've heard Bob say, great. That's great that you wanted that, but ultimately, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. That's the rule with legal stuff, is if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So the trust needs to be in place before the child inherits, whether or not that's, while the person who is creating the trust is still alive, when they pass away, needs to be in place before they inherit.
And if it's not in place, then it's a one-way ticket to my office for a conservatorship and a lot more money spent.
Yeah. We don't want to spend, we don't want to be the next Marie
Don't
Long.
want to be the next, you don't want to be the next Bob Sewell client. You want to be the next Sarah Clifford client, because she's a lot cheaper, it's a lot easier, a lot smoother.
Yeah. The next thing is that you need to find somebody who's going to, you need to administer the trust in a way that your child doesn't lose their benefits, because you can have the most beautiful trust with all the bells and whistles, and it's got all of its I's dotted and its T's crossed, and it does exactly what you want it to do. And then you pass away, or you hand the reins over to the trustee, and the trustee looks at it and says, great, I'm gonna, write the special needs person a check for $100,000. You don't want them to do that. Or I'm going to make this distribution to them in a way that's going to cause them to lose their government benefits. You don't want them to do that. You need to make sure that you are appointing somebody who is going to know when to seek help and what sort of help to seek. And you want to make sure that they are set up in a way where that they can get the help and get the advice for how to administer this trust for their benefit. That kind of bleeds into my last point, is that you need to choose somebody who you trust to succeed you as trustee, especially when dealing with special needs issues. It's very important to have a, somebody who is honest and has integrity watching the money. A lot of times, if I, stole $100,000 from my parents' estate, I think my siblings would come after me and say, Sarah did something wrong. She took the money, we are going to sue her. If I stole it from my little brother, Nathan, I'm not sure he, would know what to do or where to go. So it's very important that you think carefully about who you trust to succeed you as trustee. There are also some mechanisms that we can build into special needs trust called trust protectors. I don't have a point on this, but basically a trust protector is kind of like the bouncer at the bar. So he is there to make sure that everybody is following the rules, and if somebody's not following the rules, then you're out. You can appoint co-trustees, so you can have two people who are supposed to work together to make sure that the trust is administered in a good way. That's another option as well. But ultimately, we want to make sure that we surround ourselves with people that we trust, who can be trustee and manage the money. And let's say you're thinking to yourself, I don't have any family members I trust. All of my family members, just want to get their hands on my money, and they want to see me 6 feet under. There are professional fiduciaries and professional trustees who do this for a living, and that's an option as well. So what questions do you guys, that's the end, and we've looked at all of our tools. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions because we went through a lot of material. What questions do you guys have for us?
Cricket, go ahead, because I do see that you have a question there, and then I have a couple myself, and you go right ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, first, before I start with my question, my son is a huge bow tie fan. And so I showed him your picture, and he said, nice job. You look very nice. He's going to be doing his Lanimals show, and his Lanimals line, his clothing line, will have bow ties. So thank you for wearing that today. You made his day.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Your son has great taste. And lately I've been walking around telling people, when I'm in charge of this firm, you losers will have to wear bow ties every day, including the ladies. Including the ladies, they're going to be wearing bow ties. Sarah's going to have to wear a bow tie.
Wear a bow tie.
Bow tie and cigars.
No one will do it. No one's going to join me.
No, you look great. So my question was, and you may have answered this, I just want to make sure that we clarify this. So my husband and I will probably be setting up Landon Special Need Trust where the money would be transferred over to him when we pass, kind of like what you said your mom would be doing. When that happens, what would happen if he were to pass before, you know, his sister, whatever, like where does that money go? Does that money have to be given to the state because he has state support? Like, how does it work? Because we definitely want to make sure that we're not like funding him a third of what he could be getting if that's what's going to happen. So I guess my question would be, what is the best way to handle that if that's the case?
Yeah, so if the state is taking your money, you did something terribly wrong. So the state should never be coming in after, and if you're administering a trust or an estate and taking your money. What we would do is when I do special needs planning, we run through about a jillion scenarios. My husband can't believe that I get paid to do this for a living, but we say, okay, let's pretend that, you know, Sue dies before you or Bob dies before you, and we hash out what would happen. Let's say, so ultimately it's up to you where you want that money to go if Landon passes away before you guys do. So you could say, you know, I want it to go to my daughter.
It's your money.
It's your money. It's ultimately your money. So it's not creditor protection for you. It would only be creditor protection for your beneficiaries after you pass away. But while you're alive, it's called a revocable trust. So it's your alter ego. The courts kind of treat it as your alter ego. It's going to use your social security number. And you can go ahead and change your mind 1,000 jillion times because ultimately right now you're taking care of Landon and you're going to make sure his needs are met. And the purpose of this is to make sure his needs are met after you pass away. So you're setting the pieces on a game board. That's going
the other
to
question, thank you, Sarah. And then I have one more question. So if Landon, let's say he was independent, Lexi wasn't here anymore, whatever it may be, and he's basically left, the only one. Is it best for us in that trust or that special needs trust, or is it similar to the way you would write a will as well? So like if I wanted Landon to have a proper funeral and I didn't want him cremated and I wanted, like, could I put specific things on how that would look? And then if he were to pass that, you know, I don't know, whoever was going to be assigned to make sure that he was taken care of at the end of his life, whether it's, you know, I don't know, a trustee. I don't know how that all works. I don't even know the terms, but, you know, would that person be responsible to make sure that our wishes were met, and that information would be in there for somebody to know that?
Yeah, so you can write into a trust almost whatever you want to write into a trust. So you can be really creative with what you put into trust. And, you know, the only things that you can't put into trust are if you are encouraging somebody to do something illegal. So let's say you say, I want Landon buried, you know, in the park. And there are laws about where you can bury people. And so, you know, that would be illegal. That probably wouldn't work. You can say, so illegal if you're encouraging somebody to do illegal or if it's against public policy. But ultimately, if you wanted, you could say, you know, when you could write the special needs trust and say when, you know, Landon passes away, you know, this money, some of this money could be used to bury him instead of cremate him. You could definitely write that in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Let me jump in and add some comments. In Davis Miles McGuire Gardner, we have two sections of our law firm. Sarah and Bob work in what we call the traditional section. I'm in the Legal Shield section, and so a lot of what we do is kind of tag team with Bob and Sarah. And if you have questions or some basic questions, you can call and talk to my team. And we're sort of like the urgent care, if you want to look at it that way, and they're sort of like the hospital. And so we will refer you over to them when that's what you need, but sometimes at our level, things may be a little more simple, but you certainly don't want to try and get hospital needed care at the urgent care level, right? So we tag team, we work a lot that way. So sometimes people are a little nervous. You know, if I get Bob and Sarah going, does it cost me money right at the beginning? It may or may not, depending on how their fees work. But if you have Legal Shield, then you call us. So you can go directly to them or you can call us. It just depends on how that works. But we are all in the same firm, and so we support all that they do, and we really love being able to talk with you and help you and then get you the kinds of care you need, because I've done estate planning in my career and seen so many times. Bob could tell you story after story that just makes your hair curl. And it's very sad sometimes to see when people didn't plan it well and have just a huge mess. But it's also some of my clients years ago, a family that had a trust and they planned it well. They all worked well together and got along. And they said it was so smooth and it worked so well. And they were huge believers in planning it well and working together to get it to come out right. And it worked perfectly. And that does happen. Bob has seen those, Sarah has seen those. That does happen, and that's the way you want to set it up.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
if you're okay with me adding, guys, I've known Bernadette for 3 years, and she's done Legal Shield way longer than Sounds of Autism. And it took us to this point for her to feel somewhat confident. I'm not even gonna say confident, because she was shaking in her boots having this conversation, because not one of you does she want to lose any type of relationship or friendship with because you think we're trying to sell you something, because that's not what today is about. Today is about the fact that everybody on my team works 2 jobs, everybody, and including myself. And we do that because we haven't had the time to fund what Sounds of Autism is doing, but we also don't want Sounds of Autism to be just about money. And so we've taken our time to really build this the right way. But with Bernadette's resources and these types of people that have this type of, I just call it a wealth of knowledge, we would be foolish not to introduce this at some point. And so today, this is what this is about. It's really about knowing that there's a lot of different options out there for you. The worst thing you can do, which I did for a long time and I shouldn't have, is not get my life figured out so that if something were to happen. And I think it's probably, for myself, probably one of the most irresponsible things that I've done as an adult. And I know that today, and that's why I'm here really pushing and encouraging all of you to just listen and take this really seriously, because it really is god awful when you don't do the right thing. Bob talks about what he deals with, but I hear the stories from my husband that has to respond to families that they're in the middle of beating each other up over this kind of stuff, and it really does happen. And so just being aware of that in the sense of urgency. A lot of people talk to us and they say, well, I don't know if I can afford it. Well, you know what, there's so many different solutions that we can figure out a way to make that work for you. And so don't let that be one of the reasons why. We can work with you on those things. And that's why we left our email address, info@soundsofautism.org. You can reach out. We can give you more solutions and just really encourage you and help you and support you through that. That's what that map is behind me. It's our journey map. And we start at prenatal and we educate people all the way till the end of life. And that's really why we created it, as we want people to understand the importance of making sure that every step you take, you don't just think of yourself and the things that you have to do, but now you have a child that needs your help in doing that you put the mask on yourself and then, put the mask on your child and help support them. So thank you guys all for showing up today. And I don't know, there may be a few more questions, but thank you guys for presenting today. It was an amazing presentation. I learned a lot, and I think it's going to be a very successful community partnership with you.
Yes, and I just want to say, Ron, thank you so much for bringing that up, because I do have a 10-year-old daughter and I'm not quite ready to start getting advice yet on guardianship or conservatorship. But I know that when I'm ready, I can pick up the phone and call you guys and ask you guys questions with my Legal Shield membership without, incurring the hourly fee. And being proactive is what's really key, and asking those questions and knowing a plan ahead of time, like you, Sarah and Bob had mentioned, is being proactive and just knowing in advance what we're going to do. So thank you for mentioning that, Ron. I did want to ask a question with regards to guardianship, though. And Cricket, you may be able to expand on this, but we have a family. She works for a school. She's a social worker. Her son is 18 years old. And Cricket, you know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
And he had, they got caught fondling each other. And they both have the mentality of, I think it was a 5th or 6th grader, maybe even 4th or 5th grader. What responsibility does the parent hold when this happens? Because now this child, or he's not a child, he's 18. Now he's in a home, a community home, where he's not getting the best of service. But right now, until she gets guardianship of him, which she's not sure if she's going to do because she doesn't want to be held liable for anything, she's afraid. She doesn't know what steps to take. And I know we can call you and, with the membership and get unlimited advice, but that's the question I often get is, what responsibility does the parent hold for something like that when they're 18 if they have guardianship?
So we're held responsible for our own actions in the law and not the actions of another person. So if I have a child that has special needs and that child went out and fondled someone, and by child, I mean someone over the age of 18, or that child will be held responsible. Now, if I know that my child is a predator and I take my child and put the bait in front of him, yeah, I'm going to have an issue. I'm going to have an issue civilly. I may have an issue criminally, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about being negligent, talking about being stupid. We're talking about, what do you do when your special needs child has proclivities that aren't part of everyday society? Well, you get a guardianship. That's the first thing you do, and then you find that person in an appropriate home, and that's how you should handle it. And that appropriate home might be in your home, it might be at some group home, but you don't want to do nothing. Let me explain why. I have a nephew. His parents were his bio parents did drugs. He now has the mentality of a child. He looks like a normal person. Okay. When you look at this kid, my nephew, he is a normal looking kid, and he can fool you for the first few minutes, and maybe 10, 20 minutes. After that, it gets a little sketchy, but he can fool you for a while. Well, one day, this kid decides that he's going to steal a car with his buddies, and they do. And he sat in jail for 1.5 years. So, and there was no guardianship over him. That would have been a lot easier of a discussion when we say, yeah, my son, yeah, he's under a guardianship. That really hamstrings the prosecutor. So think about that story next time you talk to that person.
Let me make a comment here. Davis Miles McGuire Gardner is a big firm. We've got a criminal attorney. We've got several criminal attorneys, some in my department, some over by Bob and Sarah. I think next door to Bob or right there. We've got bankruptcy attorneys. So some of these things that even if you plan well, things can go wrong. If you plan terribly, things can go terribly wrong. There's usually an attorney here in the firm that can help sort some of those out, help figure out what to do. We can provide some sources for that.
And Bob and Ron and Sarah, if you look at this map behind me, there's a monster. It's a gumdrop monster, and he's the puberty monster. And we talk a lot about that. And we typically start talking to families at 9 years old about the chemical changes that could start happening and the things that could occur when that happens. And we're seeing this especially with women because they have a couple of changes that they go through chemically, that there's a lot of quick changes that occur. And when those things happen, that, like you just said, like a sexual predator, they get these urges, they can't control them. We start talking about that at 9 years old on different things that we can do to help support those types of urges and doing those types of things so that doesn't happen. But we're also at that point, 9 years old, we're starting to talk to these families about these types of things because it's that important. And that's when we're seeing it happen. And we're hearing from families all over the world that are dealing with that situation that Bernadette just talked about, all over the world, where these kids are being detained. They have to sign up as registered pedophiles because they're making decisions that were not corrected or acknowledged, or maybe mom and dad just didn't know. And so that's what Sounds of Autism does, is we come and we bring a voice to all the different options out there, all the different solutions out there, and we bring people like this to you to help support you and give you solutions so that you don't have to go and try to figure out who's the right people to work for. Bernadette and I spend a lot of time talking about people and who's the right resources that we're going to work with and expose our families to, because we too want to make sure that they're in a very protective environment, and that the people that we're putting them in front of are going to take care of them the way we would take care of them, or would want them to take care of our families as well. So again, thank you guys for joining us today. If we don't have anything else, we would definitely like to maybe have you guys come back and do this again, because I really think it's a value of information that would really help support all of us. And there's a lot of other components that we can really touch upon. So thank you. And anybody out there that's listening now, it may not be you, but it may be a friend or a family, or it may even be yourself that doesn't have a special needs trust or a trust, or even a will. And at this point, especially if you're raising these kids, you need to make sure that you set yourself up correctly, at least yourself, so that your child doesn't get left behind with a lot of different people making decisions that you may not make for your child. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you guys the next time. Thank you so much. And Bernadette, I know you have closing words.
I just got another question from somebody. I'm trying to see what this question is. Bear with me one moment. And that question is Carmen. Hi, Carmen. Thank you for joining us. Carmen has a question about wills and trusts. Carmen, okay. Can you hear us? Go ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. No, the reason I'm asking is that my grandmother recently passed away, and it was again in November. So now we got a letter in January of her home was on a lien. And I was like, oh my goodness, her home was already paid off for so many years, and now there's a lien. And I was thinking, is she going to lose her home, or if the home was sent to her? She has a will. So I just want to know if the will can be sent to protect that home or so, or what's the difference between a will and a trust, because there was no trust or anything in order to save my grandmother's home. So kind of I'm just kind of want to know what steps to do or so.
Okay, so there are a lot of different questions wrapped up into that one. So first one, what is the difference between a will and a trust? So there are a couple different ways that you can pass title to property in Arizona. The first one is joint. So Bob and I can go open up a joint bank account or hold house jointly. The second one is beneficiary designation or pay on death designation. So, life insurance policies often have beneficiary designations. Retirement accounts have beneficiary designations. You can put them on houses. The third one is a trust. A trust is a sort of contract that says, usually there are different types of trust, but the one that we do most often says, this is where I want my money to go after I die. It's a contract. Okay. And because of the way that a trust is set up, we don't need to go to court and say, hey, judge, help us out. So let's say that somebody dies and property does not pass through one of those three. Okay. If Bob dies, Bob can't sign his name anymore. He's passed away. So what we need to do is we say, hey, court, Bob can't sign his name anymore. Will you appoint me the representative of Bob's estate so that I can sign Bob's name? This is kind of getting into the history of estate planning and the history of wills, but wills used to be far more common than trusts. And what a will says is that when I pass away, you need to go tell the judge, hey, I passed away, and apply to be my personal representative. So Bob passed away, Bob can't sign his name, appoint me personal representative of the estate. The will can leave instructions for that. And then the trust is a contract. A trust used to be irrevocable. That's the only type of trust that they did was, and we're talking like 1800s, 1700s England. They were irrevocable only, which means that you had to give the property away while you were alive. And obviously, not very many people were using those because nobody wants to say, here's everything I own while I'm alive. You might need that. So trusts are kind of this, or wills are kind of this old concept that grew out of, the probate courts. Oftentimes, so when I'm doing estate planning, I do a trust and a will. Why do I do a will as well? Because sometimes people forget to put things in the name of the trust. Property is in the trust if it's titled in the name of the trust. Okay. I have clients all the time who they get a trust, they get it all funded and everything's great. And then they go buy a beautiful cabin in the mountains and they're so excited about the cabin in the mountains that they forget to put it in the name of the trust. Okay. The will just says put everything into the trust. So that's the difference between a will and a trust. And you had a question about liens too.
With that, Carmen, you're going to want to go to an attorney, discuss the lien, show the attorney the will. You'll resolve that lien through the probate and whatever strategy you come up with the attorney.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I do have the will. My uncle is a personal representative. Okay, so is there?
Do you act quickly?
I have to act quickly.
Do not drag your feet. You need to be acting in days, weeks, latest, but not months.
Yeah, because there's a lien, so they're going to say, the lien holder is going to be saying, where's my money? And what you don't want is for them to start a foreclosure action on the home.
Yeah, you want to find out why the lien is there to see if you can go back and, there could be several reasons, but you got to work through and probably through your uncle that's the personal representative. Okay,
because she was on Access for many years because of her, she had both. She had Medicare and Access or so.
So you got the Access lien, and so you're going to resolve the Access lien with Access through the probate.
Okay, so I just want to get a couple of straight. So I go to a lawyer, because they asked me to submit this type of questionnaire, and I did that, and I sent the lien, a copy of that lien towards that survey questionnaire. But I don't know if it's going to be removed that way, or I have to do get a lawyer and try to find a way to retrieve the home back.
Yeah, that's a great question to ask in a consultation with the lawyer.
Yeah,
we can help you with that. Legal Shield Division can help you with that, and whatever, or the lawyer of your choice.
My other question is, since it's on the lien, you said not to do it right away, since it's been on the lien since January.
No, you need to take action now.
Okay, that's what I was. Yeah, that's what I was just wondering. I was like, oh my gosh, are they going to already take the home away because it's already been? And I didn't even know it was on the lien to begin with.
Don't rest on your laurels. Take action now.
Okay, well, if I can get your information or so I can kind of send it towards my uncle, and we can work towards getting her property back to him. Okay, that'll be great.
Put it in the text box.
I just want to
call that number and ask for Bob Sewell.
Okay, let me take a picture of this,
and you're either going to get me or Sarah on this.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for helping me.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh gosh.
One of the things I want to just share is, like I said earlier, when we first started, Cricket had mentioned that there's so many legal situations that we encounter as families of special needs, and any family really. I mean, going through just daily life, we encounter things. And that's one of the greatest things about working with Davis Miles with Legal Shield, is that when you get a Legal Shield membership, you don't just get an attorney, you get a whole law firm that specializes in every area of law. So we're very, very grateful for all three of you joining us today. I don't see any other questions, but I just want to say thank you, Bob, Sarah, and Ron, for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with our families today. And like Cricket said, we definitely want to have you on again. But does anybody have any last comments or remarks?
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.